Welcome back to the agenda. Our next guest was born in Reno, raised in Fallon, and now wants to represent Nevada's 3rd Congressional District in Washington. Recently retired from the North Las Vegas Fire Department, he has a law degree from UNLV and served in the Nevada Assembly for the last 12 years, most recently as Speaker. He's raised more than $600,000 since entering the race, and barring an alien abduction, he's poised to be the Democratic nominee who will take on freshman Representative Joe Heck in the general election. Here now in his very first appearance on the agenda is Assembly Speaker John Oceguera. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
I'd like to start off by looking at a clip from Face to Face. You appeared with John Ralston last night, so we're going to toss to that, and then I'm going to ask you a question about it. Let's take a look.
If we can make healthcare more transparent, make insurance companies more transparent, and get the cost of healthcare down, then I'm for that.
You are not going to commit to the singular achievement of Barack Obama's first term, the Affordable Care Act? You're not going to commit that you would have voted for it?
What I'm going to commit to is that we need more transparency in healthcare, and this is a step in that direction.
The question they're leading in was whether or not you supported. In other words, would you or would you not have voted for that keystone piece of legislation? Not just the biggest, most important legislation from President Obama, but I would say probably in recent time. Why won't you take a position on that one way or another and just say how you would have voted?
Well, because I'm trying to look forward. You know, everybody keeps trying to ask questions in the past, in 2010 election. I'm trying to look forward. You know, this is what I think. I mean, if we can make healthcare more affordable, if we can make it more accessible, and if we can make it more insurance companies more accountable, then I'm for that.
Do you think the Affordable Care Act does that? I'm sure you've read the bill, I assume.
There are a number of provisions that do those things. So since I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know what's going to happen at the Supreme Court, whether it's here or it isn't here, those are the things that I will fight for. I'll fight to make sure that we have affordable health care in this country that is accessible to everyone, because, as you heard last night as well, I worked for the last 20 years where people picked up 911, and that's their access to health care. And I think we have to make sure that health insurance companies are held accountable as well.
All right, well, let's look forward. You're talking about interesting looking forward. For that matter, let's look at the current situation. We have 29% of adults in Nevada are uninsured. It's the 3rd highest rate in the nation. According to statistics, according to the projections, the Medicaid rolls under the Health Care Act are going to grow in Nevada more sharply than in any other state, largely because we have so many uninsured. Also, those new enrollees, for every dollar that Nevada spends to cover them under Medicaid, basically the federal government under the Affordable Care Act is going to put $9 back. This is a tremendous deal for Nevada. Now, you would not have voted for that?
Well, what I would not have done was I wouldn't have voted twice to end Medicare completely like Joe Heck did.
Yes, but what about Medicaid now? I mean, look, Joe Heck can't go out and sing the praises of this affordable health care plan, which frankly is a tremendously good deal for Nevada. But Democrats should be out explaining that this is a tremendously good deal for Nevada to make him defend himself and why he would axe it. Why don't you do that?
Well, I think I just did.
No, you didn't. You talked about the Ryan plan. I'm talking about Obama's plan. Why don't you get out, defend it strenuously, and put Heck on the defensive?
Well, I think I just did. I just said that, you know, Mr. Heck voted twice to end this completely. That's not what I would do. That's not my priorities. My priorities are protecting Social Security and Medicare. I wouldn't have.
How would you protect them? Can you go into some specifics on that? For example, you've criticized Joe Heck for supporting the Ryan plan, which is essentially a kind of a privatization voucher program. Would you support? Some Democrats have suggested means testing, for example, as a way of saving costs on those 2 programs. Is that something you would support?
Look, this is what I think.
Yes or no? Would you support means testing as a way of reducing costs for Social Security and Medicare?
I think we've got a lot of people struggling in this community, in Nevada in general, and I'm going to try to get this economy back on track. That's what's going to fix these problems. We've got to stop the bickering and the fighting and the finger pointing. We've got to balance the budget the right way. That's protecting these programs. That's protecting Medicare. That's protecting Social Security. That's ending tax breaks to big oil companies, ending tax breaks to...
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but with all due respect, this is what I'd really like to understand. You, based on your interview with John Ralston last night and your comments so far today, you seem unwilling to take a position specifically on just about any major federal issue, how are voters supposed to make a decision about whether to vote for you or not if they don't know where you stand on these issues?
Because you're asking me questions about things that I wasn't there to vote on. I'm looking forward. I want to get this economy back on track. I want to make sure that people aren't struggling in this state.
The Health Care Act could come back around. In fact, it's fairly likely, whether part or all of it is struck down, that it will end up before Congress again. So don't you think you should study up and start taking some positions on what you think should happen?
Well, yeah. Whether it comes back in the form that it is now, I don't think that will happen based on the fact that it's at the Supreme Court right now. So we're going to have options there going forward, whether it's going to be the same or different. But I'm telling you what I will do either way.
Okay, we will be back with more of our discussion with congressional candidate John Oceguera right after this.
Welcome back to the agenda. We're talking today with congressional Democratic candidate John Oceguera. Let's dive back into something else that you had said on Ralston's show last night. He had asked you if you would have voted for the stimulus program. Let's see how you handled that question.
Look, we can go back and rehash, 2010 election all you want, but I'm looking forward. I'm looking towards 2012.
Was that a good idea, the stimulus?
John, I'm going to look forward to 2012.
You don't want to...
Look, the Republicans are running on the health care. They're running against it. They're running against the stimulus. And frankly, when the economy was collapsing when Obama took office, things were downward spiral, complete collapse of consumer demand. Something had to be done. The Republicans effectively were advocating tax cuts, especially for the rich people and businesses, which is to say they were advocating a supply-side solution to a demand-side problem. This gets to the heart of, I guess, what you believe in terms of economic policy. This isn't just some academic exercise how you would have voted 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This is really about who you are, what your economic beliefs are. So I'll give you another opportunity. Given the fact that without a stimulus, it's questionable whether the engine of the economy would have started to purr again or not, would you have voted for the stimulus?
Hugh, let me just say this. First, we balanced our budget at the state on the stimulus money. So that's number one, 4 years ago.
And not just balanced the budget, but kept a lot of people working, kept a lot of people in jobs. They, in turn, spend money in the local economy, hence the term stimulus.
But, again, I wasn't there. I didn't vote. I'm going to look forward. I'm going to look forward.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think then that the Republican idea of just giving tax cuts to businesses and primarily wealthy people, that would have been a sufficient answer to the economic problems that we were facing at the time?
I do not. I think giving tax breaks to companies that ship jobs overseas to big oil companies is the wrong way to go. That's not the right priority. And that is what I think this election will be about, is about priorities, about protecting things like Social Security and Medicare and not giving those tax breaks. We need to incentivize corporations to have jobs right here at home.
I want to pivot now and talk about something that's also very important here in Nevada, which is this housing crisis. In your press releases, you've repeatedly criticized for Congressman Joe Heck for his various positions and votes on housing. But I looked back at the record. You did a conference call some months ago with a Georgetown law bankruptcy professor as sort of a spokesperson for your position. He talked about softening the deflation of the housing bubble and not letting it plummet. Joe Heck, too, has talked about a soft landing and not a hard crash and doing things to help people out. How do you differentiate yourself from Joe Heck on housing at all based on that comparison?
Yeah, look, again, there's with so many people struggling, look, I'm underwater in my house, and I know a lot of my friends are as well. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a silver bullet to this problem. But I think it starts with getting the economy back on track and getting people back to work, creating jobs. I think that's where it starts.
Let's look forward. You say you want to look forward. 25, that's the number of seats that Democrats need to retake the House. That's a number they need to pick up. Yours, presumably, is one of the relatively few competitive seats in the country. Let's say you win this thing. Let's say 24 other Democrats knock off Republicans. They win this thing. The most important vote you're going to cast, and the one that I really care about, and this is looking forward, is are you going to vote for a Democrat to be Speaker of the House?
Yes.
Are you going to vote for Nancy Pelosi? Have you pledged your support to her?
Look, that's a long ways off. I'm going to focus on what's important here, the economy, and getting elected first.
She's one of your biggest donors, $5,000 to your campaign. You haven't made any assurances to her that you'll support her in that position?
No promises have been made.
But if she's the Democratic candidate, I mean, if she's the one that the Democrats put up, and often it is one, you're going to vote for her, right?
Well, look, that's a long ways off, Hugh. I mean, I think who we're going to vote for Speaker, I got to work on getting this economy back on track. I got to work on getting elected first.
You won't vote for a Republican, am I right?
I will not vote for a Republican.
Well, there's at least that. All right. Thank you very much, Assemblyman Oceguera, for coming on the program. We appreciate it.
We sure do.
All right, Elizabeth and I will be back with some takeaways right after this.